G'day folks, Joe here again. Well, I put all the pistons, connecting rods, I've done it all. I was going to do a video on it, but it took all my concentration, so I thought I'd just focus on putting it in and not bother about filming this one. But anyway, I've only just done it, so what I'm going to do now. And look, I tell you what, it's come together beautifully. It's a fiddly job. Time you lube up your rings, get the shells in the right way for the conrods and all that. It was a fiddly job, but I got there in the finish. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to pop a head on. I'm only using, these aren't anything special, these gaskets. It's a Felpro blue, and I've had a bit of success with that other engine, and I'm running the same gaskets, so I'll stick with that. Look, if there's any trouble with it, it'll blow a gasket. I'd rather that than having a steel gasket in it and no safety cushion. So a gasket at the end of the day, I know it's a pain in the backside, but at least it's your first sign that something's wrong. Alright, so I've got the gasket on, and I'll pop the head on. Oh, they're beautiful, these heads. They're not really heavy, nice and light. Just a quick view of it there before it goes on. Actually, I'll give it a quick clean. It's a bit dirty, actually. I'll clean the other one. And that's the key to everything about engines, is cleanliness. Got to keep it very clean, the whole process. I've put a little bit of oil just in the tops, so when I'm spinning it around, it just keeps it nicely lubed up. That'll burn off first time you start it. All right. That's it, straight on, beautiful. All right, and the next phase, I found when I did not these ones, but the ones up here, I had them threaded right in, and I found they're just not quite long enough. Look, I'm not sure if you can see that in the camera, but when you wind that right in, there's just not enough there, so I've just had to back them out a little bit. 3 or 4 turns. So the idea is, if I can get full, just the full nut on there, we'll be right. There's a fair bit of thread going into these ones. And look, the old Holdens are a funny design because they've got another 2 bolts down here, because the main ones are like either side of the cylinders. So you've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. And then all of a sudden you've got these 2 here, so I don't know what the story is about those. But and you don't torque them down. There's 80 foot-pound, and you do them in 2-3 stages. So for example, 40, 60, 80, okay? And you're supposed to do it in a sequence. And then once the engine's going, hang on a sec, I'm going to fire this engine up on this stand. So that's the plan. Because what happens is, with the alloy heads, you have to retorque the heads once you've had it running. So I thought, rather than put it in the car and do it that way, I'll put it on the stand, and that's another vid I'll do down the track, is I want to fire it up on the stand and make sure there's good oil pressure and everything's hunky-dory before I put it in the car. So if there's any issues, it's not it is a big deal, but it's not as big a deal having to pull the engine out of the car. So, all right, I'll put these. Now, what you've got to do now is every stud, especially ARPs, they like you to put a bit of assembly lube on. And what that does, it gives you a better torque reading. So you're basically lubricating all the surface and you get a more of an even pressure rather than just putting it on and torquing it up and then binding on all the steel and whatnot, and you're not getting a real true. Well, you'd have to torque it up to probably 120, 30 pound if you're the same value, and then it's going to be all inconsistent. So by putting this lubricant on the thread and on the nuts, I'll just put a couple on, and because I won't bore you with the whole lot, I better put one up here, and I'll just half nip it, and I'll spin it over, and I'll show you underneath the reliefs for the conrods. So, oh, this is exciting for me. This is my first probably real engine build. I've actually done the engine that's in the Monaro now. I did a silly thing years ago and put a manifold on, and as I was swapping the manifold over, I stuffed a rag to stop crack getting down into the distributor hole, and I ended up putting it in flush, and I did it over a week period, you see, the whole manifold swap. And this is going back probably 20 years ago, 18, 20 years ago. And when I put the manifold back on, I forgot all about the rag. And I pushed the Dizzy in and pushed the rag down into the engine. And I got out the road, I had a mate with me, and I'll tell you what, the difference it made to the manifold change was amazing. Anyway, lost oil pressure, and the rag went through the engine. So that was an expensive little lesson there. So yes, and I had to end up, not really rebuilding it, but getting the crank linished, honed the bore, new rings, all the rest of it, and that's how I sort of learnt on basic engine rebuilds. Like I said, I'm no expert, but I've done a fair bit of learning and whatnot. I'm just taking my time. So it seems to be coming together nicely. Look, all the hard work's done. The machinist has done all the checking for me. All I did was just double check everything. So I forgot to show you, actually, the piston would be about 20 thou down from the top of the deck. So that really, he's done a nice job, the old machine shop. I mean, it wasn't cheap, but he's done a really nice job of it. Anyway, I've only got a couple of nuts holding that on at the moment, but I'll show you guys underneath what I mean about this clearancing. I'm going to take the camera off the stand. Just a quick look at that before we go. There's another thing here. Because this head, the ports are higher, they give you a spacer, and that spacer, it goes that way, sits right there and lifts the manifold up. So, but I'll do another vid on that, and I'll show you how it all sort of sits in there. So it lifts the manifold, and that's why they call them a high port. So, but I'll show you the clearancing, because it's real interesting, this, under the on the block. This is going to be tricky. I've got to put a pin in it, stop it moving around, because I want to just show you how much clearance there is when you stroke these things. Let's get it there and see. Alright, I'm going to just take the camera off the stand. Bear with me. Might get a little bit. Alright, well that worked out nice. Okay, and we'll see if I'll get my I'm not sure if you can see now. I'll just grab my, because I don't want to stop this camera, I want to keep it rolling. I'll put my phone on and I'll just get a bit of light here and I'll show you what I mean. Yeah, there you go. You'll probably see that. If I can come in under there. If I sit that there somehow, well, this is awkward. I'm not sure how I'm going to do this. I'll see if you can see that. There's not much clearance, you know. They don't allow much. I'm just going to turn this over. You'll see it there. There you go. Hang on. Sorry guys, I'm really trying here. I'm trying to get you a nice little shot of how much clearance there actually is. What I'll do, I'll move it down and I'll take a... Oh, look at that. That's close. But look how much is there. I would be guessing probably a mil and a half. Yeah, geez, that's close. But it all clears. It's done a nice job. Actually, the piston doesn't stick out of the bore as much as I thought. I'll just spin this around and I'll show you, because you probably won't get to see it again. I'll just get it at top dead, bottom dead I should say, but there it is. So it doesn't stick down as much as I thought. It does hang down, but I'd like to, it doesn't come down as far as I thought actually. I think a 383 stroker would come down that little bit further, but you know, all the little attention to detail that I've done is definitely paying off. But anyway, I've got to torque my conrod bolts up. I haven't torqued them down there. 63 foot-pound. The head's 80, and yeah, so I really can't do too much more to it now. Once I'll paint it up, of course, and get it looking nice. But for now, once I torque everything up, I really have to pull the engine out to rob the bits off it, like the sump. I'm keeping the camshaft off the other engine and I'm putting it into this one. So I don't know when it's going to happen. Maybe over Christmas. If I get a bit of time off over Christmas to do it, but for now it's basically all together and it's the stage I wanted to get to. I'm heading down to a track in a couple of weeks down south of in Tasmania where I live. My local track's being, they're upgrading it at the moment. They're doing not so much work to the track but to the tyre barriers and gravel traps and that, so that's out of action for a few months. But there's another track down south and it's about a 3-hour drive, so I'm going to drag the car down for that, and I'll definitely have some footage for that. So until then, I'll catch you later.